The housing crash has ended. Let's have a look. Hello everyone, Florian here, and welcome to another episode of HeiseSays. Grab your stein of coffee and let's have a look at this article written by Stephen Kukulis about the housing crash, an opinion piece. The fall in house prices is coming to an end. Now, there you go, guys. What do you reckon? Before we even get into this article, do you think he's right or do you think he's wrong? Let's check out property prices. Let's look at Capital City from SQM asking prices. You can see here, well, it's kind of gotten a bit flat, hasn't it? It's not falling that dramatically. Oh, well, there you go. What did I do? I just zoomed in on a tiny bit. But if we look at, well, let's look at the different Sydneys. Let's look at Sydney asking prices, and you can see here, yeah, they shot up, they climbed up a lot, but they're coming back down. They kind of flattened out, okay? They dipped, they're up, and they're back down again. What about good old Melbourne? These are the asking prices here. There you go. It looks like it's flattened, hasn't it? It's almost like people went nuts selling and supply is constrained on the market because, well, people don't need to sell. If they don't need to sell, they're not going to, are they? What about Brisbane? There you go. I mean, my city, it's just gotten stupid, guys. You know, look at this. All houses, 2020, 600 grand, roughly. You know, slowly climbing up, but boom, now 900,000, 900,000, 700 grand. I was talking to my mother the other day, and she lives in a complex. She's got a little two-bedder, brick veneer. There's a pool, the tennis court. It's managed, and it's not for seniors. It's for everyone. That was a very important consideration for her. And I think a neighbor sold one of these little two-bedders for over 400,000, which is just nuts. Just nuts. I think it was even more than that, to be honest. Something crazy. So let's, well, and that's on the Gold Coast. So let's have a look here to see what Kukulis has to say. No, I'm not. Wrong thing. Nope, wrong thing again. There we go. Wait a minute. Wait, I'm confusing myself here. There we have it. There we go. It's YouTubing, guys, screen capturing. So, the fall in house prices is coming to an end. With supply not meeting the demand for house prices, prices can't go much lower. Now, as I've said, and I will bring this up in a moment to go through some of the arguments I have why there's actually a lot more support for property than people realize. Okay, I've got everything working. So what I just want to draw your attention to, because I've, I'm going to sound like a broken record, but I've discussed this in videos in the past, is that, well, you've got fewer bad loans. They're not as bad. Non-performing loans are not as high as people think. You've got the floodgates are opening. Migrants are returning to Australia. People want to come here. People want to live here. People want to study here. Okay, it's not changing. You've got the construction apocalypse. Builders are crashing at the moment. It appears to be a daily basis. It feels like it, probably because I'm exposing myself to it and reading all the articles and talking about it. I had a mate today called me. He's going to get his builder's license, and I said, oh, okay, yeah, just be careful. I've read too many small builders going under. You'd be awesome at it, but I'm scared. You've got the government juicing the market. Okay, they intervene and support the housing market directly or indirectly. You've got 5 and 2% government loans. You've got negative gearing. You've got shared equity now. Isn't it awesome? All of these things add to support. You've got 50% of Aussies only want to live in these 3 cities. Okay? I know we've got people in Adelaide and Perth exists somewhere, and you got Darwin, and you got, Port Hedland, and there's something in Tasmania going on there, but 50% of people want to live in these 3 areas, guys. When my father immigrated to Australia, his cousin went to Adelaide, got a job at the Holden factory. He went to Melbourne to get opportunities. This is what doesn't really change. And we're talking 50, 60 years ago now. You've got national construction code changes that are going to drive up the cost of builds. People want these changes. They sound good, but it makes housing more expensive. Here in Queensland, we need these Section J performance requirements for air conditioning. It sounds good, but you've got to understand these are all additional costs. So that's going to drive up the cost, and it's going to add to the support. And finally, APRA intervention. They're going to change the rules so credit isn't choked off until house prices. Essentially, by changing the buffers, it means it's going to increase people's borrowing capacity. So you've got to keep all of these things in mind. when we're discussing property or the market. So let's check out what Kukulis has to say. So house prices have almost stopped falling. Who would have thought it? In the first 3 weeks of February, the CoreLogic house price 5-city series has fallen by just 0.1%. If the momentum is sustained, prices are likely to be slightly down or even flat in March, which will be a clear signal the worst is over for house prices. A year ago, some bombastic forecasters were looking for house price falls of 25 or even 30%. They got media coverage, but alas, looked to be wrong. I remember when the RBA was, modeling house price falls of up to 40%. And the media jumped on it. I jumped on it because 40%, that's crazy. But the thing is, it was just one scenario they'd run and it gets the headlines. So there's an overemphasis on negative news, and property just happens to be the state religion in Australia, so we're going to see it like that. So, the key issues behind house prices getting close to bottoming out is strong demand, as population growth has boomed, while new housing supply is increasing only moderately. Anyone who has studied economics in high school or perhaps beyond knows that one of the most basic economic concepts is the relationship between supply, demand, and prices. If, for example, there's a shortage of a particular good or service, relative to the demand for that good or service, the price will increase. If there is weakness in demand relative to a given level of supply, prices will fall. It is one of the easiest economic concepts to digest. The problem is when the government intervenes and screws up with price signals, which, they do all the time. We've got interventionist approaches to our economic management here in Australia. We don't have a free market. And Australians don't want a free market. Okay, sure, there's a whole lot of us watching here. We're probably, male, older, more independent focused. I think there's a lot of libertarians that watch the channel, would argue against these interventions, but we're not the majority, guys. Sadly enough. We witness this effect on a daily basis in markets like oil. A supply disruption for oil or a change in usage because of a surge in economic activity in China, for example, sees the oil price rise. Or when the oil producing companies say they will boost production, which will add to supply, prices fall. It's a similar issue for the Australian housing market. While interest rates, credit availability, unemployment, household incomes and other issues have a cyclical impact on house prices, at the end of the day and over the medium to long term, there is an interaction of supply, the construction of new dwellings, and demand. And our ability to meet that supply is going down because we're in a construction apocalypse, at least in the resi sector. From population growth and household formation, that leads to price changes in houses. You can throw in building costs as an issue. Materials and labor costs are a long-run structural issue in prices too. What about legislative changes driving up the cost of builds? You can't forget that. No builder is going to build a house if the cost of construction is more than the sale price, and building costs right now are booming. So house prices are bottoming. According to CoreLogic house price data, so far in February, Sydney prices are up 0.1%, Adelaide and Perth are down 0.1%, Brisbane and Melbourne are down 0.3 and 0.4% respectively. While this all may be a short-run data quirk, when account is taken of the auction clearance rates, the extreme tightness in the rental market, and a rise in household incomes, it is more likely to be a clear signal that housing market is in for a period of relative stability after the falls in 2022. And you've got to understand, these falls, we're still not at pre-COVID levels. Okay? So remember when, in 2019, I remember looking at articles reporting on the RBA predicting 40% house price falls, housing will crash, all of these things. We're still not at the price of property then. And we were bitching and moaning about housing affordability then. My argument is housing affordability is a complex issue that you have to get state, council, and federal government all working together, or really all getting out of the way. That's what has to happen. At those three levels of government, they have to get out of the way to allow market signaling to occur. But they're not going to. It's never going to happen in Australia. Never in a million years, guys. Honestly. Am I too cynical about it now? Maybe I am. Maybe I am. So where to now for house prices? Over the next year or two, Higher interest rates and a probable rise in the unemployment rate will work to dampen house prices, as they always do in a cyclical sense. Offsetting this are the powerful effects of supply and demand, the surge in building costs, which will support prices. Relative to population growth, there are simply not enough new dwellings coming onto the market. There is a shortage. After what looks like being a peak-to-trough fall in Australia-wide prices of around 9 to 10% from April 2022, prices in the next few months are likely to experience a period of consolidation. This means a few small ups and downs from city to city and region to region, but overall not much change. From the later part of 2023 into 2024, when the rampant surge in Australia's population feeds extensively into demand for housing at a time when supply growth is moderate, prices are likely to be skewed higher. Price rises averaging around 0.5 to 1% per quarter for the second half of 23 are a reasonable expectation. So he's saying prices rising, guys. So we're not even going to see pre-COVID levels again in a lot of places. At this stage, it's difficult to forecast a surge in prices given the outlook for interest rates and unemployment. But if by early 2024 there is an interest rate cutting cycle in the offering, house prices could well kick up at a solid pace closer to 1 to 1.5% per quarter on average in 2024. As always, for housing there will be many moving parts, but for now it appears the low point in the house price cycle is near. So there we go, the take from Kakulas. So let's have a bit of a talk about that. Hang on. There we go. So, what do you reckon, guys? Do you think we've hit the low in house prices, or are they going to continue to fall? Remember, you haven't seen many people get off the fixed rates of their mortgages, but I'm leaning more and more to a similar... it reminds me of when we had the interest-only cliff. Remember that? And there was predictions of it rippling through the market and house prices correcting. It never manifested. We even looked at a poll on my own channel, and you know what? I will. So I've added another slide to my deck discussing, property support, and that's this one here, family support, guys. I asked viewers of the channel if you would provide money to a family member that is struggling with their mortgage. Now, a lot of the viewers of the channel are parents, so we've got to take that in mind, and a lot of them are men. So of the 363 people that voted, and I just did this an hour ago, 30% said yes as a gift, 36% said yes as a loan, and only 34% said no. So this is another thing that's supporting property prices. Family's going to have their back. And now this won't be for everyone. Everyone won't have this opportunity, but that's just that's just the class society that Australia's becoming. Anyway, guys, let me know your thoughts and opinions on all of this. Do you think the housing correction has reached the bottom, or is it a bit early to call it? We'll have to wait and see for interest rates, or the interest rate fixed period cliff to manifest. Anyway, thanks for watching. Check out my other channels, Heise BIM and Heise Does. And if you're a fan and want to support us, you can on YouTube or Patreon. Use our referral links, buy our pocket squares, or call us if you need an architect. Take care, everyone. Have a great day, and I'll see you in the next episode of HeiseSays. Bye for now.